Ever fire off one of those texts, the ones that are like mostly emojis and abbreviations, and then like worry you're on a one-person mission to destroy the English language?
Yeah, me too.
It's something we've all probably wondered about at some point, right?
Yeah.
Like, is texting actually good or bad for our literacy? That's what we're diving into today.
It's a fascinating debate with a lot of interesting angles. I mean, we hear those concerns about texting hurting literacy all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like all those abbreviations, emojis, is that stuff messing with our grammar, our syntax? It's easy to see why people are worried.
Right, and there have been studies looking into just that. One from the Institute of English Studies, for instance, found a link between, well, how much someone texts and how well they did on grammar this was with high schoolers.
Hmm. Okay, so there is some data behind that worry then.
Seems like it. And that's led some linguists to be concerned that by simplifying language the way we do in texting, it might actually make it harder to, well, express ourselves later on in situations where you really need that traditional grammar.
Yeah, like in a professional email versus
Yeah.
just goofing off with friends. Those need different approaches.
Exactly. But then here's the thing, hasn't language always been changing? Like, that's kind of its thing, right?
That's true. Makes you wonder if maybe texting is just part of that evolution we always see.
Exactly. And that's what makes this debate so interesting. It's not just doom and gloom. What if, instead of holding language back, texting is actually helping us get a better feel for how it all works?
Okay, now that's an interesting take. How do
Yeah.
they figure that?
Think about it. When you're texting, you're working within these weird little limits, right? Got to be short, got to be quick, maybe toss in an emoji or two.
But you still got to get the point across.
Exactly. And to do that, you're using, well, a surprising amount of language awareness. There was research at the University of Modern Linguistics. They found that people who text a lot, they may actually be getting really good at something called language registers.
Language registers. Okay, gotta admit, not a term I use every day. What's that all about?
Basically, it means you understand that there are different ways to use language depending on who you're talking to, what you're talking about, that kind of thing. Like, you wouldn't write a formal email the same way you'd text a friend, right?
Yeah, for sure. Tone is totally different. Even the words you choose.
Right. So, what that research suggests is that maybe all that texting is actually training us to be better at switching between these different voices or styles. It's like your brain's learning to be flexible with language, right? Picking the right way to say things depending on who we're talking to.
Okay, so pretty useful skills to have in, well, pretty much every part of life. But I bet there are still some people out there thinking, yeah, but is it really writing, though? Like texting still feels pretty different from, I don't know, writing an essay or something.
Yeah, texting has definitely got its own little rule book, that's for sure. But here's the thing, even the idea of what counts as literate, that's always been changing,
Hmm.
right? As long as people have been using language, they've been changing it up, finding new ways to write things down.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just off the top of my head, like, think about what the printing press did. Or
Yeah.
slang. Every generation's got their own words.
Exactly. And if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, the history of English is full of this stuff. Shakespeare's a perfect example.
Good old Shakespeare.
So he's considered like the literary giant, right? But when you actually read his work, he's all over the place with grammar, making up words left and right, stealing from how people were talking in the streets.
He was kind of a rebel, language-wise.
Totally. But the point is, those experiments, they helped make English what it is today. So when we look at texting, instead of freaking out about it ruining things, it's like, hey, we're seeing language evolve in real time.
So maybe instead of good versus bad, the question is more like, how is this changing things? Like, what's the long game here?
Right. And there's actually some research on that, which kind of surprised me. The Global Communication Council, they did a big report on how young people write these days. Get this, teens are actually writing way more than like any generation before them.
Hold on, seriously. But they're on their phones constantly. What are they writing, if not like term papers and stuff?
That's the thing. It's not usually that formal stuff. It's texts, social media, online chats, you name it. But even if it's not like perfectly punctuated, they're still having to think about who they're talking to, how to get their point across.
So basic communication, even if it uses emojis, it's still using your brain in a writing kind of way.
Exactly. And that's got some researchers wondering, could this actually be good for more complex writing later on? Like maybe it's building blocks or something?
Interesting. So maybe we're too quick to judge just because it doesn't look like the writing we're used to.
Which brings to mind something the linguist David Crystal said. He basically said that with the internet, we've got this huge explosion of ways to communicate now. And he sees that as a good thing. Like, it's not limiting language, it's just giving us more options.
So it's less about like losing language
Yeah.
and more about all these new ways of using it that we're still figuring out.
Right. And I mean, think about it. We're already doing this every day. Yeah. Like, you don't write an email to your boss the same way you'd text your best friend.
Oh, absolutely not. Totally different vibes.
Exactly. And being able to do that, to adjust, that's kind of what literacy is all about when you get down to it. It's not about like memorizing every grammar rule. It's knowing how to use language to actually communicate with other humans.
So maybe instead of freaking out that texting is going to like ruin everything,
Yeah.
we should be looking at how it's changing things.
Yeah.
What we can learn from it.
Exactly. And that's something we can all be thinking about, even our own little worlds, because whether it's picking the perfect emoji or writing up a super formal email, we're all part of how language is changing.
Makes you realize it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Like this living, breathing thing that we had to be a part of.
Totally. Maybe next time you're like stressing over a text, just remember you're part of something way bigger. Digital communication is shaping how we connect with each other, and that's kind of wild when you think about it.
And there you have it. From freaking out about emojis to like realizing maybe texting isn't so bad after all. Hopefully this deep dive has given you a new perspective on all those texts we send every day. They might just be making us better communicators in the long run.